What's up, everybody? Getting closer to the end of the NFL season, talking about every game in Week 16. I think we did really well last week in our predictions. Sliwa, we're going to keep that going this week. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, keep getting all of our NFL content, especially as we get closer to the playoffs, and comment below what you're thinking. Sliwa, I'll hand it off to you for the Thursday night game.
Yeah, we got another full slate this week in a Thursday night game that I'm really excited for. We got the two teams coming in at 7-7. The Saints beat the Giants last time out, pretty handedly, so they remain tied at the top of the NFC South with the Bucks. And the Rams, on the other hand, they beat the Commanders, and the offense has really looked elite the past couple of weeks now. Right now, as it stands, Rams sitting at the seventh seed with the Saints at the eight. So serious playoff implications in this game. Are you leaning with the more offensive team with the Rams, or are you going to go with the defensive group with the Saints, or do you see another X factor in this game?
I think you teed up that game perfectly, and I'm leaning towards one of the two that you mentioned, and that's the offense with the Saints. I think you said it perfectly when you said the Rams are playing at a pretty high level. I say offense with the Saints, offense with the Rams. I think the Rams are playing at an extremely high level offensively, and really what impresses me the most is Kyron Williams out of the backfield, that running back. Even when these Rams have gone against really insanely good run defenses like the Ravens, you still see Kyron Williams putting up 100+ yards and putting up touchdowns. The Saints, we talked about all year, have a very legit defense, but the fact that this run game for the Rams has been able to nullify that, I think that gives the Rams a huge advantage this game. And I really like the way Kupp has been looking the last 3 games. He's been getting like 10+ targets a game. Puka Nacua hasn't been slowing down all that much either. Offense is really gelling. I think the Rams here hold on to their playoff spot as opposed to let the Rams slip into one. Sorry,
Yeah.
the Saints slip into one. A lot of misspoke there.
No, no, I'm with you though. I like the Rams. I really like how they've looked. Said it last week as well. Derek Carr did look a little bit better for the Saints in this last week, but that was against the Giants. No
Hmm.
Tommy DeVito in that one, or at least lost him during the game. And the
Hmm.
Rams still put up 28 points with Kyron Williams losing 2 fumbles in Commanders territory. I mean, they could have put up 40 in that game.
Yeah, agreed. So I like both on the same page with the offense with the Rams there.
All right, yep. Moving on now onto our Saturday games. Another weekend with Saturday games. We got the Bengals now sitting at 8-6, going to the Steelers, who've dropped a few now, sitting at 7-7. AFC North divisional matchup. As we mentioned, Browning picked up that win. That's 3 straight for him now in Cincy, whereas the Steelers have now lost 3 straight. And it kind of seems like they're losing the locker room a little bit.
Hmm.
Receivers aren't blocking on some run plays, but Mason Rudolph at the moment is set as the starter unless Kenny Pickett does have a chance to play. Do you like anybody in this divisional matchup? Spreads implicating this gonna be a close one.
Yeah, I was on the Steelers last week on Saturday, came out to a 13-0 lead against the Colts and thought I was right there that they were due for a bounce back game. They ended up not putting up a single point after that. I think this is such a trap line with Jake Browning, 3 straight wins. Steelers have looked terrible the last few weeks. They're starting their third string quarterback here. They're begging to take -2.5. I thought the Steelers were due for a bounce back win last week. I am even more vindicated that they're due for it this week upon seeing this 2.5 line. I like the Steelers money line here. More of a situational play. Steelers went into Cincinnati earlier this season and beat the Bengals. Different circumstances all around from quarterback play this time around. But I do think that it goes back to Mike Tomlin being one of the best head coaches, I think it's safe to say, of all time right now. And his ability to get the locker room back together, especially with a lot of talking heads and divas in it, and maybe some disgruntled players. But, still a ton of talent on this Pittsburgh team. And I think they're going to find a way to win this one at home and not drop, what is it, 3 or 4 straight here?
Yeah, now before if they did lose this
Yeah.
one.
And figure out a way to stay at least in the playoff hunt, if not even in the actual playoffs. So it's not much about analysis here. It's about if this was 3.5, I would say, yeah, go to Bengals here because that spread actually makes sense. For a team that's trending so well with the Bengals versus a team that's trending so poorly with the Steelers, I think you had to take the Steelers on this oddball line.
I think anybody besides Trubisky is an upgrade at the
Yep.
quarterback for the Steelers, whether
Yep.
it's Mason Rudolph, whether it's Kenny Pickett. And granted, it was just his first start, but Jake Browning only put up 10 points against the Steelers in his first start.
Hmm.
So I like the Steelers a lot at home. Haven't been playing well, but as you mentioned, coaching staff, change up at quarterback who was really killing them the last two games.
Yeah, I like it. I like the move, and I think teams don't go on these big losing or big winning streaks in the NFL. Just you see a lot of, especially teams that are in the playoff hunt. They turn it around. These guys have a lot to play for right now, and they're getting desperate. I think it's a game they win at home.
Yeah, I agree. But our second Saturday game we got now, um, the schedulers probably thought this would be a really good matchup, but we have the 8-6 Bills now going against the 5-9 Chargers. Chargers got blown out to the Raiders last Thursday. So they did have a little extra time to prepare, but they fired the GM, fired the head coach. Staley's gone. We've been calling that for too long now,
Yep.
but it finally happened.
Yeah.
Bills, on the other hand, they beat the Cowboys by 21. They look back on track, now winning their last two and against top teams in the NFL. Do you see any world where the Chargers stay in this game?
No, I don't. And I was just talking about the last team on the Steelers are a desperate playoff team. There's been no team that has epitomized that more than the Bills the last 2 weeks where they're back against the wall, beating the Chiefs on the road, beating the Cowboys in convincing fashion at home. They were in a spot where they had to win. And even now they're not out of the woods. They got to keep winning ball games. This is a very tight AFC conference with a lot of teams hovering on that 7-7, 8-6 mark. So they got to keep winning games. They're going against Easton Stick, like you mentioned, that he wasn't shown to really do much. I think I'm not reading too much into the game last week where they got blown up by 63 because I think everyone on the Chargers knew that Staley was on his way out. He would have been fired last week if they weren't playing on Thursday. If they're not going to give an interim head coach a short week. That's just a terrible thing to do as an organization. And so everyone knew that regardless of that outcome, Staley was gone. I think they just didn't try. But I think even if they try their best this game, the Bills are coming out and they're going to keep putting up 30 plus a game because they're not messing around anymore. They've proven to themselves that they're a playoff caliber team. They're much better than their record says they are, as we keep talking about according to Pro Football Focus. I think the Bills blow them out here, even on the road.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Josh Allen finally broke his interception streak. Only threw 15 passes though, but
Yeah, it didn't
I mean this
barely
Chargers
cracked
team
the
just
100
gave up
yards.
63 points to Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders, so can only imagine what Josh Allen's gonna do.
This is the one time where you just ride the hot hand because these guys really do have real playoff implications. Facing a team that has zero playoff implications, that is signaling a rebuild right now with the head coaching fire. And even their best player like Keenan Allen, he's getting pretty old.
Yeah. But moving on, we got the Seahawks playing in this Monday night matchup against the Eagles, and then the Titans, who are now sitting at 5-9. They did lose to the Texans in OT. Levis hurt his ankle, and it looked really bad on replay, but apparently there's a chance he might play in this game still. So there's no real word on the quarterback situation yet. Regardless, PFF still views Seattle as a top half team at number 12, and the Titans are sitting at 27. So these are just two really opposite ends of the teams, although they've both been trending down the last few weeks at least. Do you see any value in this game?
I liked the Seattle money line here. Even before you mentioned the PFF grades and clearly a big spread between these two teams overall, I like, at least the roster much better for Seattle. I think it's hard not to like the Seattle roster much better than Titans. You can't say that they're better coached than Mike Vrabel, but you can say they're pretty well coached with Pete Carroll, who's been there for a real long time and done a pretty good job in Seattle. I mean, they don't have their edge at running back with Derrick Henry in Tennessee, but Kenneth Walker, he plays with a lot of heart. He's a dog there, running back. A lot of great wide receivers in Seattle, and some big playmakers on defense too. I do think we don't know the outcome of the Monday Night Football game, but especially if the Seahawks lose this one, they're on a real skid and they're due for a game to turn it around. Playing a team that in Tennessee that is much less talented than they are. The playoff hopes for Seattle is not completely diminished. I think they win this game, albeit in an ugly one, as this over/under is implying.
Yeah, I mean Derrick Henry isn't what he used to be. I'm
No.
really, just really surprised to see this line at Tennessee -3 or basically even on a neutral site. I mean the Seahawks they haven't been great, but they're definitely the better football team in Tennessee. I feel like you just don't overthink this one.
I'm glad.
Maybe you see Tannehill play, like who knows?
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on quarterback for that game.
But moving on, got the Commanders coming into this game at 4-10. We've really read them well the last few weeks, and they're going
Yeah.
up against the Jets, sitting at 5-9. Two teams trending downwards, coming off losses. Jets couldn't even score a point against the Dolphins. Commanders lost by 8 to the Rams, kind of made it a little bit closer in the end. But Zach Wilson, he's in concussion protocol. Saleh said if and when he's ready, he'll be the quarterback at least. Commanders, on the other hand, they benched Sam Howell for Jacoby Brissett in their last game. So
Yeah.
just two teams kind of in mess situations. Like personally, I find this one hard to bet. You really don't know what you're going to get at quarterback from either position. But is the Jets defense good enough for you to take them in this, or do you think the Commanders find a win here after just being on such a skid?
That's a really good question. It's so funny that this Zach Wilson getting hurt with this all this Aaron Rodgers drama potentially playing quarterback.
Yeah,
He's not going to play. Who is the backup quarterback if it's not Rodgers?
Semyon, I believe.
Oh, okay, he's not even that terrible. That's like it's almost just a swap for Wilson, not even a downgrade all that much. I do think, to answer your question directly, I do think the Jets defense here is enough for me to side with them. I think in a game with so many questions at quarterbacks, you lean on the one constant between these two teams, and that's a good defense for the Jets. You've seen Terry McLaurin have some boomer bust games. Had a great game last week against the Rams, against a defense that I've said in the secondary that I'm not all that impressed with. I can't say that about the Jets. I'm extremely impressed with their defense. I think it's going to be a really hard time for Brissett or Howell or any quarterback for that matter to throw the ball too much downfield on them. The Dolphins are able to do it because they're getting 100 possessions a game, and the Jets offense can do it against their solid defense. The Commanders defense is one of the worst in the league by many metrics, especially points per game that they've allowed. I bet you see a little Garrett Wilson action here with no matter who's throwing to him, and you're going to see the Jets win in an ugly one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've kind of been leaning with the Jets, even though they've been trending down, but I still got to stick with them in this. It doesn't really seem like the Commanders are trying to win games. Like they lost by 8, but they weren't really ever in that one
Yeah,
last
it
week.
wasn't a competitive game by any means. I'd be surprised.
No, I completely agree. All right, moving on. Pretty interesting matchup here. We got the Colts coming in at 8-6 now, really surprising everyone, and then the Falcons at 6-8. Colts just beat the Steelers last time out, pretty handily, and the Falcons only put up 7 points in the loss to the Panthers, as you called perfectly this last week.
I was really happy with that one.
Yeah, this game's pretty interesting to me, like matchup wise. Minshew, he's been throwing the ball really well, over 200 pass yards in each of the last 4 games. Atlanta's secondary is pretty suspect, but now Pittman's in concussion protocol after that brutal hit. And then we should see Jonathan Taylor come back, but then when you flip it on the Atlanta defense, their rush defense is really tough.
So good.
Do you think the Falcons keep surprising here, or do you see a way that you could bet on the Falcons after you just picked them losing to the Panthers?
Yes, and that's the beauty of the NFL. That's such a good way to tee up this game. They just lost to the worst team in the league, and yet I won't be surprised if they win this game. I think the Colts are in a spot where they're getting more and more comfortable with their spot within the AFC South and the AFC in general. They're not just a straight bubble team on the 7th seed for the playoffs, whereas the Cardinals now are seeing their NFC South playoff chances and division title hopes slip with each week. This is a game that I would not be surprised at all to see the Falcons win. But given what we've seen from them, it shouldn't be surprising if they lose this game either. What I do really like is the under here. You're not seeing a ton from their offense here, but you saw like last game, they're one of the best run defenses, a solid defense. I think they're gonna compete this game. I either like the under or, I guess I always do, teasing this plus 2.5 as a home team fighting for their life for the playoffs. I liked it there, and I noticed that Bijan Robinson didn't have a great game last week, but they're going up against a very favorable Colts run defense that is allowing, I want to say, the second most rushing yards per game in the opponent. So stark difference with the stout run defense of the Falcons. I think it's a good matchup here at home for them to at least compete, if not win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel great. I mean, you kind of sold me on the Falcons here. Like just looking at this matchup from a bird's eye view. I mean, I've leaning with the Colts, just continue to win games, but yeah, when you really get down in the matchup, especially with Michael Pittman injury, for a Colts receiving core that's not too deep, I think that's going to really hurt them.
This late in the season, I think we've been doing very well lately of calling games and calling upsets specifically. This late in the season, so much depends on how bad the team wants it. a lot of these teams, especially the middle or the road teams, the teams fighting for playoff spots, are pretty similar in talent level. It's what team is playing with nothing to lose, or on the flip side, and just as dangerous, what team's playing with everything to lose. The Colts aren't playing with everything to lose right now. The Falcons are, and that's why I side with them. That's why I've been siding with the Bills the last few weeks. That's why we had the Saints and Bucks. It's definitely situational. You got to know when to pick them and when to fold them there. But I think you can read a lot into that later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, this might be another game that falls into that scenario,
I
but
think it
we have the
is.
6-8 Packers now going to the Panthers, sitting now 2-12. Packers lost at home to the Bucks. They were in the driver's seat, sitting in that 7th seed. They fall out of the picture the moment. And then the Panthers, they picked up their second win in the season. Wasn't pretty. It was a 9-7 game, but you could turn it the other way and say the defense played great. The Panthers also sneakily rated the 12th overall in coverage, despite being really poorly rated in just about every other category.
Yep.
This Packers team does tend to pass a little bit more. Do you think the Panthers can make it 2 in a row, or was that win a flash in the pan that you just called perfectly?
Yeah, you know what, you've been doing a great job setting up these games. That's a tough one to answer. I do think it's a flash in the pan, and I do think the Packers win it. -5 is a little rich. I like you mentioned 12th best coverage defense because as of late, they're playing as a top 10, even top 5 unit in coverage. They have been sneakily one of the best coverage units in the second half of the season. If it wasn't for how they started this season, they would for sure be in top 10 in PFF rankings. Just their first half is weighing them down a little bit. And that matches up really well with the Packers. Like you said, they passed the ball a lot. They're missing out on Aaron Jones right now. I'm not sure if he'll be back for this game, but just AJ Dillon alone has not been cutting it in that Packers backfield. I think if I were to pick one game, I think the Packers sneak out with this win. I don't like -5 though. I do think like you're talking about, this is a low total for a reason. -5, the Packers haven't been looking all that good on offense. They go against a very stout secondary here. I don't see the Panthers, who looked pretty terrible all year. Even the wins they've had, they haven't looked all that great. I don't see them coming out with 2 in a row, but I do see them continuing to compete. Because as we mentioned before in weeks, they're not even taking for draft picks right now in the first round. Like they're playing for pride. That's all they have. Like win or lose, their situation doesn't change. So you might as well go out there and win.
Yeah, I mean, not that I would take the Panthers to win this game, but I would like them to cover at the
I do
plus
too.
5.
I definitely like that
I think
one.
it's be
Mhm.
total implies really low scoring game. Yeah, I like the plus 5
I
there.
have
Just
to.
rely on the defense.
Yeah, yeah. Packers offense has not looked great.
All right, next up, got the 9-5 Browns now heading to Houston. Play the 8-6 Texans. Browns took a big second half to beat the Bears.
Jesus.
And then the Texans beat the Titans in overtime. Stroud is still in concussion protocol, so no word yet on him or Keenum. Whereas Flacco, he's won his last 2 now. Did throw 3 picks against the Bears. So once again, another situation where the um, quarterback rooms are both kind of, or at least more so, clouded on the Texans side. Don't know who you're
Yeah.
going to get, especially Stroud, who's playing like a top quarterback in the league, either him or Keenum. Flacco, I guess you kind of know what you're going to get with him. But
Hmm.
my 2 cents in this matchup, Cleveland 0-3 on the road without Deshaun Watson, and the Texans 5-2 at home. They're excited to have a good football team again. I like the Texans regardless of Keenum or Stroud in this one.
Yeah, I do too. I really like them, especially if Stroud plays. You don't really see quarterbacks miss 2 straight weeks from concussions. Unless it's a pretty tough concussion, which it may be, they're usually back. I would expect CJ Stroud back this week. I bet you with the playoff hopes on the line and pretty big playoff seeding implications in this game, and with a chance even to win this division, you're going to see Nico Collins as well. With both those guys in there, again, I like the Texans to win this game. They have a pretty respectable defense too, just outside of the top 10 at the number 13th overall. Uh, Pretty good coverage grade too. So if they can, Joe Flacco's been turning the ball over, throwing it. If they keep trying to force it, I think they'll turn him over again. CJ Stroud hasn't shown to have a penchant for interceptions. That's really how I think they win this game.
I mean, just think about it. The Browns could have easily just lost at home to the Bears. I just don't. I'm not impressed by their offense. They have some weapons, but none of these guys have really been playing that well. Whether it's Kareem Hunt, Jerome Ford, Amari
No,
Cooper.
no, nothing.
Texans don't have too much, but I just like them at home here. pretty sure they play in a dome in Houston, so pass friendly.
I want to say.
I think that favors the Texans a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's on the same page again. You just teach me like I was gonna say Texans anyways, and then you just like give me great stats that just make me seem smarter. So I appreciate it.
Love it. All right, now we got the NFC North matchup. 10-4 Lions going up against the 7-7 Vikings. Lions absolutely blew out the Broncos, and then the Vikings, led by Nick Mullins, lost to the Bengals this last week by 3. Vikings did announce Nick Mullins will still be the starter in this game. I don't personally love the move, but I mean, he was decent, serviceable quarterback down in San Francisco.
Yeah.
What do you? I don't want to get hit my punch yet. What do you like in this game with the Vikings as
I
home dogs?
I don't know. What I think it's gonna be a pass fest because the Vikings have one of the best run defenses in football. The Vikings don't have a ton going for their running back without Alexander Madison's been out the last couple of weeks. Ty Chandler has been pretty good as a serviceable backup running back, but you never know what's gonna happen there. This is definitely a game where you could see the Lions dropping it, especially being a divisional opponent on the road. I'll tell you what, I don't have a great read. It sounds like you got something in mind. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just hinted at it, but the Lions, I feel like they lose these random games. They lost to the Bears, bounced back against the Broncos. I just think they looked so good last week that they're almost due for a letdown. Not necessarily that they lose this game, but the Vikings' last 4 games have been decided by 3 points or less. I
Wow.
like the Vikings at +3 at
Their
home.
defense has been playing great. I say that most weeks Brian Flores is doing a great job there. He should have another head coaching gig as soon as possible. But I like
These
that.
are these are just 2 teams that played at each other's competition. Kind of interesting matchup because we talk about with the Vikings, talk about with the Lions. They could beat anyone, they could lose to anyone. I just think this to be a really close game in Minnesota.
Yeah, you know what? Especially after a blowout win to only be favored by 3 points against a team that just lost to a backup quarterback. I like the Vikings there. It's a minimum +3, very much so as a teaser.
Moving on, we got the 8-6 Jaguars going up against the 7-7 Bucks. Jags have now lost 3 straight. Looks like a really good playoff team, and all of a sudden they find themselves in a 3-way tie for the AFC South with the Colts and the Texans. So a lot on the line for them. Bucks, on the other hand, in a similar situation, they're now tied at 7-7 with the Saints after beating the Packers and Lambeau. 2 teams with a lot on the line. PFF doesn't like either of them necessarily. Has the Jags overall at 20, the Bucks at 24. Who do you like in this game? Do you see any of these teams as potential playoff threats?
I can see the Jaguar having Christian Kirk out really hurts them. I guess maybe not playoff threats anymore. I would have considered the Jaguars a playoff threat with Christian Kirk. But the theme of this video for me and what I talked about has been desperation. And both these teams are in desperate spots here. We've been talking about the NFC South playoff race ad nauseum the last few weeks. Now the Jaguars, who seem to lock at 8-3 to win that AFC South, now it's actually in jeopardy as both the Colts and Texans are on their tail. I think that the Jaguars are more talented. I like Trevor Lawrence over Baker Mayfield, although both #1 overall picks back in their day. I like the Jaguars here to win in a desperation game. That really is a coin flip here, especially with how great it's tough for me to say with how great Baker's been looking, but I'm going to go with the team that I was really high on preseason, team I've been high on all season long, and a team that I think is a lot, maybe not a lot more, but certainly more talented than the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I think this one, I feel like you could sell me either way. I think I like the over in this game. Baker's been throwing it really well.
It has been.
I'm really right on par with how Trevor Lawrence has been in 2 desperate teams. I expect them to both pass the ball a lot in this one.
I like that. I like that take.
All right. We're not one of our better matchups of the week,
Woo!
but our team is in this one. Got the 3-11 Cardinals heading to Soldier Field, take on the 5-9 Bears. You know what? I can't wait for Eberflus to brag about his defensive calls after this game. He's gonna be a mastermind once again. But regardless, 2 teams coming off of losses, fighting for top draft picks. The Bears have shown some flashes the last few weeks. If it weren't for this loss, everybody'd be talking about how they're in the hunt.
Yeah.
I think -4 here looks kind of nice. Are you thinking differently?
No, I'm with you. And you know what? I think my four is looking really nice, especially with the way their defense has been playing. The turnover margin that this Bears defense has been producing the last 3 or 4 weeks has been so impressive. What I really like about the Bears winning this game is that they shouldn't. They should have won last week so they could win this week. Instead, they lost. Now they have no incentive to win. They're not in the hunt anymore. Now we actually want them to lose, and they're going to win this game. And I think they're going to win it convincingly for some reason. That's what the Bears do.
That's what they have all season.
Also, point in their favor, anecdotal stuff. They're playing in some grimy weather in Chicago. Arizona's not used to that, playing in a dome in Phoenix, Glendale, if we want to be specific. But defensive battle here in much bigger edge for the Bears, as the Cardinals, who have a terrible run game, especially, are just so prone to letting up big chunk plays and points. Home game, defense, shouldn't win. The Bears are going to roll here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I like the Bears -4 a lot. Fields is still fighting for his job. Eberflus is fighting for his job. Even at 5-9, a lot of these guys still want to pick up the win.
Yeah, and it'd be the best thing for the Bears to lose this game for so many reasons, and they just won't do it.
I know.
I don't blame them. I'm not asking you to go out there and not try. It's just that's what the Bears
Right.
do.
Yeah, it's your job, but yeah, it would be able to benefit us fans. But this next game, we got a really good matchup. Two teams sitting at 10-4. Cowboys lost by 3 touchdowns to the Bills. Didn't really put up too much of a fight in that one. Whereas the Dolphins, they absolutely blew out the Jets. Sort of like we talked about with the Vikings and the Lions, two teams that play up to each other's level of competition. These are two teams that are really good, but they just can't get over the hump. We've
Yep.
seen it all year, but I'm interested in this matchup. PFF has them both as top 5 teams. Dolphins at number 2, Cowboys at number 4. So statistically going to be a great matchup, but looks about even on paper. Are you leaning one way or the other?
Yeah. Oh, it's tough. I was gonna get ready to say I like the Cowboys here because they have the better defense, and they've been having better defense in terms of yards and points per game over the Dolphins. But in terms of PFF overall grade, the Dolphins have them. So it's very intriguing to me. It's also intriguing, just anecdotally. Uh, Dolphins have the number 2 both overall team and defensive team. They don't have quite as high of ranked. Actually, what's their offensive rank? Are they also they're number 2 offense, defense, and overall. So really interesting stuff there. I don't know who I like here because I think these teams are so similar to what you said. They don't always they look really good against poor teams. They've not been able to get over the hump against fellow playoff teams. They both find themselves in a situation this week. I think I'm going to lean towards the quarterback I trust more. I don't think either quarterback is that trustworthy. I think the quarterback that I trust more in this matchup is actually Dak Prescott. Offensive line I trust more is Dak Prescott. A little bit better of a pass rush for the Cowboys. So I'm going to give it to them. I also think the under is going to hit. This is when you get two teams with really good offenses, these over unders seem to shoot up. These are 2 top 5 defenses too. It's Tyreek Hill hasn't been the healthiest. I think the under hits, and I think that also helps the Cowboys if the under is going to hit.
Yeah, no, I'm actually with you on the Cowboys in this one. I like the fact that they just got pretty much demolished by the Bills
Mm-hmm.
in their last game.
A gut
Dak,
shot.
yeah, Dak played his worst game in probably over 10 weeks now. So yeah, I think they're gonna bounce back pretty well here. Is more of an anecdotal play, but these are just 2 top teams. You could really take either side and argue your position on this one.
I mean, the Seahawks have it tied 10-10 right now. If the Eagles lose, the Cowboys are still fighting. Oh, as I said, that Jalen Hurts has scored a touchdown. My fantasy loves it. But if the Eagles somehow lose this game, Cowboys are still fighting for a division title too. So the Dolphins are really only fighting for the 1 seed. They have the division basically locked up. I'm not going to say that's not a guarantee yet, but they're just about there. Again, desperation. The Cowboys needed this one more, and that's what we're going with. And I'm always, as we talked about, always going to side with the better defense.
Yeah, no, that's usually been our theme over the last couple of years. Next up, not as great of a matchup. We got the 3-11 Patriots going to Denver to play the 7-7 Broncos in this one. Patriots lost at home to the Chiefs by 10. You called that one. It's right near the spread. Broncos on the other hand, they got blown out by the Lions. I'll let you go first on this one. Broncos been up and down. Do you think this team can make the playoffs
Ooh.
against the Patriots?
Yeah, they're going to have to win this one if they want to. Just like you said before, you could sell me on this game either way. I have liked the way the Patriots have been looking the last few weeks in terms of I thought they would have gotten blown by 30 against the Chiefs. So the fact that they can even put up what they did impressed me a little bit. Um, I like how Hunter Henry is getting in the offense, actually getting someone to pass the ball to. Zappy's looking better at quarterback. It's tough. This 6.5 is the perfect line in terms of the Patriots just got to have one spark drive and they're going to cover this with this total being so low. Like you said, they need this win for the playoffs. You got to think at home they get it done. Patriots aren't playing for anything at all, but they do love spoiling teams. And as Bears fans, we would love it the Patriots to win this one too. I don't think it's going to happen. I think you get the Broncos here.
Yeah. I mean, it's another anecdotal piece, but there's the rumors of Bill Belichick potentially on his way out after the season. Regardless, he's still going to try to pick up everyone he can on his way out.
Yes, he is.
Um,
He's not his draft pick anymore.
yeah, no, exactly. I think they've looked a lot better with Zappy. I like
Yeah,
the +6.5 here.
I do.
A
I do.
lot on the road. Broncos just inexplosive all season. Never really been able to pull away and just dominate a game. I think it's a good spot for even a tease. Get it over 10 and just feel really
100%.
safe.
Oh, you got to love that with the over under 34. You know what? I kind of just sputtered there for a little bit. I think you said it so perfectly too. Broncos offense really lacks an explosive element. They really are only going to Cortland Sutton, who has been great all season long. Bill Belichick, the master of taking away your sole option, the guy you really feed the offense through. Without that, what is Russell Wilson going to do? We'll find out, but not put up a ton of points as we've seen throughout this whole season. So the Patriots spread looking more and more enticing as we do discuss it. I told you could sell me on either way. You
Yeah,
totally sold me I was leaning towards the
I mean,
Patriots. You sold me all the way on them.
I love it as a tease though. I mean, get it
Oh yeah.
over 10. I don't see how they
I
miss.
like that. I think that with that Panthers +5 at home, that over under was like 37. I think that two teams just don't lose at two teams at home don't lose by 10 points. Don't lose by 11 points.
Yeah.
Seems realistic.
All right, we got 3 Monday night games this week. Really unusual scenario, but
Yeah.
first one we're gonna be looking at here, we got the 5-9 Giants, going up against the Eagles in this divisional matchup. Giants did just lose to the Saints and kind of lost a lot of their swagger with it. DeVito, checked for concussion, but still pegged as the starter for this game by Dable. Eagles, on the other hand, they've been teetering the last few weeks. Haven't played great. Couple losses and really tanking in the PFF rankings. I believe they're at number 7 now, which at their record, I was really surprised to see. Do you see any value here, or do you think they just destroy this Giants team who is terrible in basically every advanced statistic?
Yeah, it's really tough because the Eagles, like you said, they've been falling down the PFF rankings. Their defense is really concerning me as someone that at least at one point thought that they could make a run in the playoffs again. Um, I don't know. Like we said, you see Tommy DeVito, getting injured and hurt. The quarterback situation in New York is looking bleak. I still think it's going to be a close game. Like if I had to pick one side, divisional game, I think the under, especially being divisional opponent, I like the +10.5 here. If the under is not going to hit, it's even because again, this Eagles secondary has been playing very poorly all season long. They're like a bottom. I look today, they're like a bottom 7 team in terms of points per game defensively. Like they've had a tough schedule as of late, but it's been pretty abysmal. That's why they made the defensive coordinator change. They've been really bad on third down. They seem to let teams hang around a little bit, like the Seahawks tonight. I wouldn't be shocked if somehow the Giants pull out one of those gritty games and keep things interesting. I don't think they're going to win. That's a far-fetched statement, but just Tommy DeVito's got some magic left in him. Let's hope.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Tommy DeVito is definitely going to need to make some big plays in this one. Um, yeah, I feel like I was leaning towards the Eagles minus the 10.5, but yeah,
It's hard.
You never know what you're going to get from the Giants.
I mean, Dable's a coach of the year for a reason. Uh, you, they've been talking about all night on Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football. No, it's Monday night. How the Eagles really just feed the ball to AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, and they do because they're so good. But when you have that predictability and you lack that just flexibility on offense to get the ball to anybody, it's a lot easier to game plan for and make these games close, as you're seeing the Seahawks do without really putting up too many points.
I like it. All right.
I'll check this
Next
out.
up.
This is a Monday game, but it's at noon. We get Christmas noon football. Like
Oh wow.
basically the greatest Christmas gift I could ever receive.
That'll be awesome. I didn't even know that. But we got AFC West matchup. 6-8 Raiders going to the 9-5 Chiefs. Raiders beat the Chargers by 42 points in historic fashion. Then the Chiefs got back on track against the Patriots, winning by 10. Game you called. But Antonio Pierce, now 3-3 as a head coach, been beating the teams they should beat, but also haven't gotten that win against a team with a winning record. Do you see the Raiders staying in this game, or do you think the Chiefs can continue to stay on track? I mean, they looked good in that Patriots win.
Yeah, I think the answer to your I think yes to both those questions. I think the Raiders stay in the game. I think you can make the argument that the Patriots stayed in the game a little bit last week, more so than I would have thought. This over-under implies that it's not going to be a lot of points. The Chiefs' offense has been struggling a little bit this season. The Raiders have looked really solid offensively, but with the key difference here in this game is going to be this Chiefs defense, who I've been impressed with all season long. I think they're the reason that the Chiefs are going to win this game and win this game probably by right around that 10. I think it's the same kind of game as last week. The Chiefs aren't going to lose. They're not going to win in a 30-point fashion like the Lions did. That's not what this offense does anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I mean, we saw Aiden O'Connell is a really good pocket passer, but I think that Chiefs D line's gonna just give him fits. I mean, they've been putting pressure on the quarterbacks all year. That's kind of the defensive strength on the Kansas City side.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think it's gonna be a tough matchup for them.
I think so too. I think it's a side with a +10 here. The Raiders have the 9th best overall defense in PFF. They're just really solid on them. Nothing like pops off the page, but they just have a solid defense. And you talk about a complete
Yeah.
X-factor player like Max Crosby, that makes things very interesting in a game. So low total here, divisional opponents, second time around. These guys have been competing. I think they compete again. It's gonna be tough to
Yeah.
get the Chiefs to win, as they really are fighting for playoff seeding right now in a little bit unfamiliar territory, not getting the 1 seed. But this is a game the Chiefs will win, but doesn't mean it's going to be clean. It doesn't mean it's going to be pretty.
Yeah. I mean, these Raiders players, they love Antonio Pierce. They're gonna
Yeah,
try to keep him around for next
hard
year.
not to. Yeah.
All right, wrapping it up with our final Monday night game, final game of the slate. Two teams sitting at 11-3. Gonna be an awesome game. But we got the Ravens coming in this one. They just beat the Jaguars on Sunday night, and then the Niners took care of business against the Cardinals. Potential Super Bowl matchup. Do you
I
think
think
you could
so.
see both of these teams in just a couple months here?
Yes. And there will be a video to come why I think it's gonna be these two matchups based on the research I did today. If the regular season standings and stats hold, I think it's gonna be these two teams. It's gonna be really interesting this week. It's gonna be tough for the Ravens going into San Francisco. It would have been this basically would have been a pick 'em game versus in Baltimore, is what the spread is saying. I think you're going to see the Niners do what they did against every good team this year. I think they're going to blow them out, honestly. Hard to say that, but I think my knock against the Ravens in the entire Lamar Jackson era is that they've been very one-dimensional, not as good in the passing game as I would like. You're getting a very complete 49ers defense here, even more so complete than the Ravens defense, I would say, especially with the way Charvarius Ward at cornerback's playing. I think the Ravens take away Christian McCaffrey, they take away Deebo Samuel, then boom, you got Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. There's so many options to take away from this 49ers team. If they can keep Brock Purdy, it's been the same story every week. Keep Brock Purdy clean in the pocket, and he will pick you apart because he has 4 different all-pro options.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just afraid this Ravens defense. I mean, they looked good against the Jaguars, but the week before we saw the Rams go off against them. I'm
They're
afraid we can see something
vulnerable.
like that again.
Yeah, it's gonna be, it's a great Christmas game. It's gonna be fun to watch. I think you're gonna see a little bit like the Ravens are gonna do everything they can, take away Christian McCaffrey as they should. I think you're gonna see, I would quote unquote, the role players for this Niners offense step up here, who are also just as great. They're just not Christian McCaffrey MVP level.
Yep, I'm with you. I love it.
We'll have to see. This is definitely the most exciting game of the week, and my pick for the Super Bowl matchup right now. But we'll catch you guys all in week 17. Keep an eye out for other videos as well this week.